All right, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. Returning again, I've got some more Breya, some slight updates. I actually, at Brian Weissman's insistence, I have added Rip Apart to my deck, or strong suggestion, I should say. I actually feel he's probably correct. The card is super, super good. Other than being a sorcery, which is a bit of a problem, and of course the mana costs are a little awkward, but Rip Apart's ability to destroy an artifact or an enchantment at 2 mana and just cleanly do it takes care of those cases when you can't portable hole or prismatic ending away something that is a problem for you. A perfect example, I had not had this in my deck, but I had at one time a Arcane Signet in one of my games. And my opponent played Blood Moon, is the only artifact mana that I had. And I had Mystical Tutor, so I Mystical Tutored for Prismatic Ending, and realized that I couldn't play Prismatic Ending against the Blood Moon because I only could produce white and red mana, even though I had, X was like 7 or something. I had tons of lands. Had I had Rip Apart, then using the Mountain plus the Signet, I would have been fine. And it was kind of right at that moment that it clicked, and I went, okay, I need this modal, flexible, like I need a disenchant in the disenchant slot, basically. And with that in mind, I thought to myself that this card being so good because it also kills creatures, that I would go ahead and go back to the old friend of a Braid, which just, kills creatures or artifacts. And this just gives me more of these sort of modal artifact removal for Soul Rings that also kill things like Dark Confidant. And then in addition to those, I've got, these really good methods for removing early fast mana. And if none of that works out, and of course I can copy fast mana in some cases in order to keep up, then maybe on 3 I can, steal it, kill it, remove it, or possibly even bounce it, counter it on the way down. So we've got lots and lots and lots, not counting the tutors, of fast mana solutions here with the 2 additional Abrade and Rip Aparts, but it also gives me redundant, essentially, Swords to Plowshares, and this will help a lot, I think, with decks like that rely on an early commander that's a big threat, Edric, Timna, and things of that nature. I've just got more interactivity for those really scary 3 casting cost commanders, or even 2 casting cost commanders, or 1. An example of a 2-drop does not come to mind. Actually, Jace, the Planeswalker, and then at 1 mana, there's Rogrim is a pretty solid 1-drop, for example. So having just a little bit more ways to get in there and deal with some of the multitude of threats that you face, seems pretty good. So I had actually 3 cards in the deck that I've changed. I had at one point here and here, I actually was running the blue black and blue white Signet to smooth my mana out. And of course, those are quite good against Blood Moon as well. I'm actually slightly weaker. Even though I have Rip Apart now, I'm slightly weaker to Blood Moon effects actually with this configuration because I don't have as many ways to get the mana that I need to get out from under it, to convert mountains into other colored mana. But be that as it may, so I took out the two signets, the blue white and blue black signet, and I took out I had in here, I was testing for a little while the 3-drop, solve the equation. Just goes get instant or sorcery, reveal it, put it in your hand. And the thing about solve that I realized, in generally speaking, at 2 mana, I really like Merchant Scroll. And I really like Merchant Scroll because at 2 mana, when you have a slow hand, you almost always want to go get Force of Will to keep yourself from losing the game on the spot against decks that are, that aggressive. Or if you have just a little bit of time, at 2 mana, you can go get Mana Drain. Getting it onto an untapping and being ready to go on 3 without even hitting a land, having a mana drain, or having a Force of Will right on 2 mana before your opponent hits 2 is a pretty big deal. Solve the equation on 3 is just a smidge slow for that. So you get to 2 mana, then you get to 3 mana, then you solve the equation for mana drain, and then on 4 mana, you finally are ready to hold up your mana drain, and the game might have run away with you. So pretty much you're going to go get Force of Will. Now, if you're not getting Force of Will with Solve the Equation, which is where, or Mana Drain, which is where a Merchant Scroll is superior to the card, if you're not getting that, then what are you getting? Well, you could get Mind Twist, Prismatic Ending, there's Fiends and Fabricate, of course. And in general, though, Force of Negation, maybe Fierce Guardianship. But for the most part, what you're going to go get with Solve is going to be a tutor, so a cheap card here, or one of these 2 mana cards here. Like I said, a tutor, something interactive, something along those lines, or something to dig if you don't want to get like a, say you've already burned your DT maybe, but you need an impulse, you want to just hit some mana, maybe you go get a brainstorm or whatever. So generally speaking, or you might get like a tithe. So generally speaking, Solve the Equation is in this deck, due to the changes that have pushed the mana cost down, it is going to go get, or if it gets Prismatic Ending or Mind Twist, it's frequently going to be getting a target the Spellseeker can already get. So is having redundant Spellseekers good? Yes, absolutely. Having an extra Merchant Scroll or Spellseeker is good. But is Solve better than Spellseeker? And I'm not sure that it is, because this deck really likes the 1/1 body on Spellseeker due to Skull Clamp. It actually, chump blocking matters with the deck a little bit. The fact that Spellseeker is human, so you can play it off of caverns, and essentially you can Spellseeker off a cavern, which forces the card in your hand. Your opponent can't counter that, and then you can go get a counter spell so that you can actually fight a counter war, is pretty important. Um, um, and Solve, on the other hand, if you cast Solve into untapped blue mana and they mana drain or whatever, you're hurting pretty bad. You know, they remand it, you lose tons of tempo, that kind of thing. So I'm not really sure that Solve is actually the card that I want in this deck. And that's really weird for me. And I was trying to think about, well, why do I want Solve over Fabricate? And I think it's because, I mean, isn't Fabricate kind of the same thing, a sorcery that runs into all the same problems I illustrated, with Solve? And sort of, but not exactly. The thing about Fabricate is, um, Fabricate is besides the fact that it can just go get one of your, like, not just a utility card like Umezoa's Jite or Sensei's Divining Top or whatever, but Fabricate can go get like game-ending cards, Crucible or Worlds for Strip Lock, Winter Orb, Vedalken Shackles against a creature deck, Jite against a deck that it is a utility card, but in the right situation it can be a game ender, or more typically Skull Clamp to draw cards, and most importantly, Fabricate can just go get Mana Crypt and Soul Ring. So often Fabricate feels like the card actually costs, along the lines of Trinket Mage, it costs 1 mana. You spend 3 for Fabricate, then you get a 2 mana rebate when you play your Mana Crypt off of it. And so it's not the same, actually, unless you're solving for mana drain, and even then you need 2 blue. Like, you're not getting your rebate on mana for a while. I don't know. It's a weird card because, like, man, the card should be, it just feels like it should be really good. But I think a lot of the cards in the newest set that are really good, and Rip Apart unfortunately does kind of fall into this category, they made these really good removal cards and these really flexible, like, tutors and stuff like that. But they didn't make them instant speed. And so, we're playing a little bit of Hearthstone, and I don't know, as opposed to Magic, and I'm not super thrilled with that. So anyway, I started up some games. I thought it would be interesting to do some live play. So we'll go ahead and do that. So it looks like my first opponent is Omnath, and I advertise my games for, I haven't done that in a bit. I advertise with, CEDH videos to try to make it clear that these are CEDH games. So hopefully that I won't be getting people that are too upset about the kind of Magic that I'm playing, and more importantly, hopefully I will get a little bit better matches in terms of what we're playing against. But it's hard to say. I don't know. This could be a CEDH deck just because maybe it's their land destruction deck or something. And people will regard that as CEDH, even though just being land destruction doesn't necessarily mean that you're anything. It doesn't mean that you have the C in competitive. It just means that people will classify you that way because they don't like land destruction decks. I got to kind of figure out what I'm doing here. Am I going to Mystical Tutor on turn 1? And I probably am, so we'll just play that untapped. I want to protect the City of Brass because it's one of my white sources here. It's all colors, and I don't know which colors I'll be needing going forward, so. Actually don't know what a lot of times the play here is Mystical Tutor for Demonic Tutor, so I actually don't know exactly what I'm going to be doing here with this Mystical. I was thinking about possibly just getting Mind Twist and pushing that way. But this is also one of those perfect cases, potentially, where I could just go get Mana Drain and just sit on Mana Drain. Let's take a look. It's not coming to me. So let's removal cards. Mana Drain's acceptable. Something to get more cards in my hand is good. I could just get Tithe because my opponent's going to definitely be feeding me Tithe targets. And the other option is just go get Force of Will. I think I'll just go get Force of Will. Even though it's massive card disadvantage to go down a card and then down another card, I think tempo is my main concern against this opponent. So, although we are going to pick up the pace here with this DT. And I think, once again, we just go get Crypt. I just drew, I mean, I have rather a Skull Clamp in my hand, so the concern of running out of cards is pretty minimal since this is a draw 4 most of the time. Force with a Fabricate here doesn't feel too bad since I've already got a ton of mana into play. And if my opponent sacks that, I mean, I don't think I Force of Will that. Anyway, I figured they might sack their landscape, and if they do, then I just Fabricate into Winter Orb here. All right, Narset's actually a card that I'm more likely to. I needed all of my mana there. Narset's a card that I'm more likely to pitch. So one option here is I might just Shackles my opponent. And I think that's right. I don't have to worry about him getting a ton of advantage. I have Narset to pitch, but I also can clamp the insects if I'm able to hit a land drop, and if I'm not able to land drop, I can clamp that thing and look for land, and then possibly there'll be another clamp target with the Shackles. I don't like that. Okay. What in the world? Creeping Corrosion. That's wild. Yeah, so I think I'll just go ahead and clamp that guy. It'd be nice to, get all the land going and do all that, like repeatedly clamp targets. But the most important thing for me here is development. I'll get more cards. So, so this is a tough one. If there's another card along these lines, I'm not sure what it would be. So I think that I will actually play out my mana here and hope that my opponent just doesn't break me off. But the advantage of doing this is that next turn I can then play my commander. I've got Mana Crypt mana up. I've got Skull, for Skull Clamp and so forth. So, yeah. And then I can Fierce Guardianship for free next turn, as opposed to if I held it up here and my opponent didn't have anything insane like a Creeping Corrosion. If they didn't have anything that I needed to target at all, is what it's looking like, then I'd just be way behind in tempo, right? So we don't want that. All right, so opponent gets to go get strip mine, I guess. Not really sure. More lands. All right. So there's definitely an argument that could have been made to have held my tutor for Winter Orb, but I think I can still. There's a good chance I can still locate one. What does this also do? Draw a card if you look. Okay. So I think what I'm gonna do is get the commander down, leave the City of Brass on tap, take a little extra damage, but then that gives me the flexibility on mana. And I don't want to play the Badlands because there's a chance that I'll draw a Strip Mine or Urza. Okay, there we go. So now I will play the Badlands. But also, I could have drawn just another blue source, which meant that I would have the ability to Shackles a 3 tough, a 3 power creature. So as it stands now, I can still Shackle my opponent's Omnath here. And my opponent just played a land drop first, so I think I let him have it. Let's just make sure that I'm correct. Yeah, so they've already played their land, so we'll just shrink it with Breya, steal it with Shackles, and then it's mine for good, I think. And I think at that point my opponent scoops. All right, so we'll shrink it. Let me make sure I know which artifacts. Do I want to get rid of the crypt? Is it time? I think it's time. And then, why don't you give me that? Thank you. And then I believe this says a landfall trigger, which is, yeah, 5/5. So then I just play the Misty, put 2 more 5/5s into play, and attack my opponent for damn near lethal next turn. All right, so opponent scoops it up, though. I can't tell you how many times people miss the fact that Breya can do that with Shackles. Shackles is much, much better in Breya than it is in other control decks. Like, you'll see, I pretty much put Shackles in just about every control deck, if not every control deck. But it really shines in Breya for that specific reason. The fact that you can take things that you really have no business taking otherwise. Just because it's so rare to be able to shrink a creature. People miss it all the time. Just quite excellent right there. Um, now, the other thing about Rip Apart that I wanted to mention is that unlike, you cannot do it with, so Prismatic Ending's a non-land, and so is Portable Hole. So, and Abrade does not kill enchantments, but Rip Apart is a full disenchant plus 3 damage option, and does not say non-land, so that means that if your opponent plays Urza's Saga specifically, which is an enchantment land, you can actually rip it apart, which you can't do with any of the other cards in the deck. And that could come up, so just having that extra ability to interact with a card like that early is nice. Of course, I could play some other artifact enchantment kill, something that crosses, crosses the line on both. But I don't think that that's actually worthwhile necessarily, just for that corner case, which should come up. It should come up that they play Urza's Saga. But a lot of times, you might be able to, like right there, if my opponent had gone Saga, I Mystical Tutor, I go get Rip Apart and play a land, get it off the board immediately, and now basically sinkhold my opponent, which is often enough tempo to win a game, and more importantly, they didn't get their Soul Ring. So they didn't get their creature and their soul ring and so forth. Oh, sorry about all that. And that is actually one of the reasons that I'd considered the Fragmentize at 1 mana, just because of how nicely that interacts with Urza's Saga. But I don't think it probably doesn't merit a slot given how effective Portable Hole is and the flexibility of these other two cards, like just killing an artifact or an enchantment versus having the ability to kill a creature. I think it's probably more important to kill a creature. So and then VB is just essentially Toxic Deluge for artifacts, and so we're not cutting that one. And there aren't a lot of other slots that Fragmentize could really fit into. So the other thing, one thing that came up also, and I believe in one of my games, was that Prismatic Ending exiles, which everyone probably realizes who plays Standard. But if you haven't played with the card and you mostly play Commander like I do, that's pretty relevant, or can be, considering there are things that are indestructible, and Prismatic Ending will actually sometimes be a disenchant for those things. Also, keep in mind that Prismatic Ending, you can actually get something that costs 5 mana out of play, as long as you have a card like City of Brass or whatever, because they changed a rule that said that you couldn't produce green mana in a Breya deck, for example. They got rid of that rule, which didn't really make a ton of sense, thankfully, allowing you to get up to 5 casting cost card with the ending. And then rewinding a bit on the Rip Apart and Abrade. The other reasons to add these two cards is that it improves the power of Liquimetal Torque. Since Liquimetal Torque can kill essentially anything by turning it into an artifact and then killing it with artifact removal, you can still disenchant things with your Abrade if you can get the Torque to go with it. And that is something that we saw in Kess at one point. Hopefully I can get somebody to jump into a game. I don't know, cancel and recreate, see if that changes anything. I'm not quite sure how the games display. Like on my screen, my game is always at the top, but I imagine on other people's screens that they're, seeing me sink down and eventually disappearing. So I try to occasionally just re-advertise, but a lot of times this CEDH tag does scare people off, so I can't do a lot about that. Now, at one point I had, like I was saying, I had these two cards out, and I had the 3-cost. I had Solve in, and I had the 2 signets in. So the way that I fit Solve, Signet was that I cut the Talisman of Creativity and a Rip Apart for the 2 signets, and then I cut like a Braid for the Solve. And the Talisman of Creativity is not the best card for getting out from under a Blood Moon, since you already have more red than you need, typically. So it is the weakest of the 3 talismans, but I don't think that it's better replaced with just one or the other signet, and I don't think that it's better replaced with a Felwar Stone. Should be the other option at 4 we could potentially put in here, just because at least it does make blue against like a Blood Moon, and that can be enough. And I keep bringing up Blood Moon because I faced it. I can't even tell you. It's so weird because you won't see the card for a long time, and then suddenly it's just like every 4th or 5th game is a Blood Moon, and it's been like that for days now. And I actually had the Talisman of Creativity get me out from under a Blood Moon via Urza, as a matter of fact, just giving me that second blue mana I needed in order to play Urza, and then from there I had all the blue that I needed because I had tons of like artifacts in play already. And if you don't know, there's a very weird interaction between Urza's Saga and Blood Moon. And what it is that if Urza's Saga is in play and a Blood Moon hits, The Blood Moon turns this into a mountain, and then the fact that it's a saga with no saga counters on it means that it is a saga that's supposed to be sacrificed, and so saga will instantly die. It doesn't become a mountain. It just goes straight to your graveyard as a state-based effect. You can't respond to it or anything. You have to stop the Blood Moon from coming into play if you have a saga and you want to keep yours a saga. So while we're waiting, since I'm not really getting a lot of games, I think what I'll do is I'll just run through some of my game history. And today, unfortunately, I had a game. Let's make sure we get the right format. Yeah, Commander. You can see here this game that I lost, but I also had some incredible games that I won that were quite tilting actually in the last 2 days because the replay bugged out on me, and it was so frustrating that I actually think I logged out. I tested the replay and then I ended up logging out. And we'll see. I don't remember which one it was, so we'll see if I can find it in here. But in the meantime, looks like we got another game here against Widespread Ruin, playing Winota Twin River Forces. And if I recall correctly, that can be an incredibly savage. This is a keep commander. Yeah, it's a card that has to go away as soon as it comes into play, or you pretty much just lose the game on the spot. So I'm going to start out by getting. Looks like I'll get white first, since that's the first card I would probably want to play. But this hand's a little awkward because we need black also. So we're going to bottom both of these, unfortunately, and just dig for a little bit of mana fixing. I do have a map, but I wouldn't be able to sacrifice the map because shop doesn't pay for activation costs. So, okay, things are looking pretty good now. So I could play this and just pass, in which case I'm planning to impulse, or I can play this expedition map and then sit on Swords to Plowshares. I actually think that passing makes more sense here, because what I'd prefer to do, ideally, I impulse into something that I can play off a workshop. And this gives me more opportunities to turn the workshop into a strong play. So 2/1/1s is acceptable. Not going to try to impulse into Force of Will for that or something. And no, but I could untap Upkeep, Enlighten Tutor. If I Enlighten Tutor, then I can go get a couple of options. Something for the workshop would be best. Probably Crucible. So I could ET here, right, and go get Crucible, and then try to put something together with Strip Mine. Then that potentially gives me the delta. It's a little risky against red-white though, because you want to play the Crucible and get value out of it immediately. Or I can play the Expedition Map pass, Expedition Map Workshop pass, ET end of turn. Yeah, I kind of like that a little better. So, and what this does is this protects me against opponent might go, let's say they're missing land and they go like land for a Skull Clamp, land to equip the clamp. I might actually plow there. Your number of red ones equal to 2 plus the number of cards with the same name. So they get 2/1/1s. Okay, well, the commander's coming down next turn, obviously. Pretty rough stuff. But now I get to Enlighten Tutors, so I get to ET, use the workshop to play the Crucible, and then immediately get myself a land. And although I would like to, I'd like to get a map. Let's see, where are you, Mr. Crucible? I'd like to strip mine my opponent here. Feels a little bit too risky for my tastes. I could Vindicate as well to try to keep him off the 4 mana, but I think I'd rather just try to keep him off a 6. Because here I have a nice curve. I can swords their commander and then sack and go get strip mine and do that. What is this? Create 2/1/1s. Yep. Opponent really likes their tokens. That is not going to work for you, my friend. Okay, well, if my opponent's going to make it a little bit easy for me, I'll take it. So normally I would go get Rogram Triome here, just because I want to get it into play tapped. But I really need the Toxic Deluge mana as well, and I still want to go get map with this. So I'll have to set the Triome aside in my mental Rolodex for another turn, because this thing needs to go get strip mine. I really don't want to have to deal with my opponent's commander. Mana Crypt there, very nice off the top. All right, let's get rid of their red mana. And then let's go ahead and take out their white and pass. And we'll just take a little more damage here and then clean up that board. And that should do it. I don't want a Toxic Deluge too quickly. The opponent might not keep playing. No, that's not really why. It's just because this is the correct play. You cripple the opponent so there's no coming back, and then destroy them. It's amazing how my opponent is hitting me with 6/1/1s and concedes, but 6/1/1s really with no abilities doesn't get it done. So we kill that. The question was whether or not I deluge her, and if I deluge, do I crypt? And I think the answer is something along the lines of brainstorm. So we draw 3 off of the vents, right? And then we put back, at that point, probably STP. And, we put back Flooded Strand and, yeah, probably STP. And then play the Crypt, Toxic Deluge, and then end of their turn Tithe just to shuffle away the 2 cards that we didn't want. And then from there is a Crypt in play, but it doesn't matter at all because we can get Breya into play and get rid of it. And in the meantime, we shuffled away the 2 cards we don't want. We have Dak Fade and Teferi, and we just kind of take over. We get Teferi down, bounce the Oath, just get a card and, do it. Keep them strip locked, use Dak Fade and over. Game's over. So good stuff there. Good stuff. See if we can pick up another game. And in the meantime, I'll go back to replays. I'll just start with game 1 against Colossum. So this Colossum opponent, I'm going to sort by screen name. Can I sort by screen name? No, I guess not. Lost to me. There and there. Played again. Yep, there and lost. I guess, yeah. Played here, beat me. And then I made sure not to play again, I guess. I'll show you what their deck is in a second and what went wrong for me in that game. Zyra Arian. That is one you don't see much. Target player draws a card. Yeah. This hand's not going to get it done. But this hand might. It may be safe for me to just throw away the Badlands here and then lead off with one of my white sources and call it good. My opponent is going first. Now that goes wrong if my opponent duresses me and takes the Tithe out of my hand. But if they don't, which, my opponent is just mulligan, so I think I will dump the Badlands. So the other option is to dump the Mox, but the thing is, I'm going to want fast mana as soon as I can get it, and I actually have 2 4 lands, which means that I can play my commander, provided I don't get duressed here. And if I can play my commander, then in that case, hold on. Just thinking. I think I'm actually going to play this Mox Opal. So I'm going to play the Mox Opal here. If I can play my commander, then I want fast mana. I want to accelerate and get ahead of my opponent since I'm going second. Anyway, I played the Mox Opal there because there's always a chance that my opponent does something funky with like a Wheel of Fortune, and I can't stop it at the moment. And should that occur, I want the Opal on the table. If my opponent uses removal on a Mox Opal that's not producing any mana, then I'm pretty okay with that. It just protects Breya, so go for the Tithe. Hopefully this sticks. I mean, it could be like blue, black, red, green. There isn't a lot that can interfere with this. So a lot of times I get the Triome here, but I do have a turn 2 play with the Impulse, so I'm not going to do that. So we'll go ahead and take Tundra here, and then I'm going to take Scrub. And the reason I take Scrub is if you're not sure what to get, and you have access to all 4 colors like I do, so typically you want to get as much blue as you can, but having said that, the next thing to be thinking about is BBB for Necro, black, black, black. Down the road, right? You always want to think about what you're going to need, 3 or 4 turns from now if you can. So, of course, I would need 1 more black, and I would need to draw the Necro, but none of that is like extremely outlandish or anything. Oh boy. So I could Impulse in response and put a good card in my hand, and then hope they don't take it. But I'd rather just see what they get and then Impulse because, okay, yeah. So I'll throw away, should I want to throw away Deluge? So here's where I kind of wish I had held the Opal, but I think I will throw away Deluge. So that's my City of Brass, but since I picked up an extra land, it's actually the worst card in my hand, the City of Brass was. So strange. I haven't been hit with that in quite a while. It's been a very long time. So mana leak looking pretty good here. Hopefully that'll protect me. So if I'm going to mana leak, I don't want to play the tapped Steam Vents because I may want to leak ET. So we'll just do that. I mean, I could have played the untapped Steam Vents, I suppose, and telegraphed that I have a play, but I'll avoid taking damage if I can help it and not reveal my hand. So I can mana leak this. Honestly, probably correct. Barely registers on the threat meter. So I'm going to do it, but I'm not quite sure that that makes a ton of sense. Because I could have just Enlightened Tutor for Crypt and then just played Breya Crypt. And I'm probably still going to get Crypt here. And the reason I'm getting mana, so I could get Crypt, I could get Urza's. That's no good, it just delays. So the reason I'm going to get Crypt here is, instead of Soul Ring, is that I can play my commander and the Crypt versus, I could do it off Soul Ring by playing, let me back up. I'm thinking about playing my commander. If I get a Soul Ring, I basically have to play the commander. So I play this land, right? And then I play the commander, and then I use Mox Opal to play the Soul Ring, and then I have the commander's activated ability ready to go. But alternately, I might be better off running out the Crypt and then getting a Fact or Fiction going. And if I do it this way, I do take a little damage here. But what it allows me to do is Fact or Fiction into a counterspell if I need one. And I think that that's probably correct. Because, I mean, the commander's good for tempo, but Fact or Fiction is good for winning. And the thing is, my opponent has triple black. Like, they could slam a Necro and then I'm in big trouble at any time. So having the ability to maybe get a counterspell in my hand is pretty important to me. So at the end of their turn, there's nothing that I'm gonna play off a red, like a Braid. Everything else is a sorcery, so we'll tap that for mana. And then the only question is whether or not I want to tap this way. And the reason I'm tapping this way to cast Fact or Fiction, so I can't counter anymore, theoretically, is that I might get a Vampiric Tutor or I could get a Mystical Tutor here, and I'd like to be able to potentially play either one of those cards if I do see one of them. Wow, look at this trash. So look how bad my next 4 turns were all bricks if I didn't factor Fiction here. So I'm guessing it's Mind Twist or nothing. And I'll take the Mind Twist, of course. Basically, it's 4 cards for me or 5 cards not for my opponent, minus the 1 card for me. So basically, I go up 4 cards in terms of hand size, or I go up 4 cards in terms of reducing my opponent's hand size. The reduction is better. And there's a couple reasons for this. First of all, choices from my opponent. They missed a land drop, so that's a huge tell that this is pretty powerful right here. All right, oops, there we go. Narset's a really nice rip there. As long as it doesn't get pulled out of my hand, I'll have something to do. But here's the thing, and this is something that Brian Weissman explained in the Duelist #1, something I'd never thought about. But if you, let's say you take, in my case, I had 1 card in hand. Let's say instead of Mind Twist, I had taken the 4 cards. So I would have gone from 1 card to 5 cards in hand. Don't worry about the fact that they're lands. Let's just look at it in terms of raw cards, right? So from 1 to 5 is increasing my hand. You know, my hand is 500%. It's 5 times the size that it was, right? So it's a massive, it's a 4 card benefit, but in terms of percentage wise, it's pretty high. But if I hit 5 cards from my opponent right there, losing 1 of my own, but I'm taking I'm taking every card in my opponent's hand. So I'm taking like, so look at it as sort of an infinite percentage increase, or I mean, it is 100% of their hand, sure, but in terms of their choices, for me, I get 4 extra choices by picking up 4 cards. They lose all of their choices, and so essentially, the percentages in value gained versus value lost. Mind Twist is more powerful, generally speaking, than a card like Brain Geyser, or in this case, certainly Factor Fiction for 4 lands. So we want to just kill Deathrite Shaman right away. And oops, let's not be dumb. So I'm going to kill Deathrite Shaman right away. This does 2 things for me. First of all, it kills Deathrite Shaman, which is pretty good, considering my opponent needs mana. Secondly, it turns my Mox Opal on, which is very nice. Third, it turns on Fierce Guardianship, which means my hand is relatively safe here. And so that's protecting Narset. So it protects my graveyard, cuts their mana down, tempo plays a threat, turns my Opal on, and protects Narset. All for 1 card. All right, this guy levels up eventually, and then he turns into, I can't tell. Target, I don't know what it does. We'll just kill it. Eventually. Okay, so Narset seems pretty good here. Dak Faden seems pretty good here. What do I want to do first? So I'd like to do Narset first. And dig. Narset into Dak. Just because if I don't hit anything super useful off of Narset, then I have more fodder for Dak, basically. The other thing is if my opponent had cards in hand, I could Dak my opponent to make them lose their cards in hand, their extra cards in hand, but that's not going to come up here. So this is interesting. Since his Divining Top, really good because I need an artifact if I want to kill. I can sack Breya and the top in order to kill the assassin and still draw a card off of this. I don't have to do it right away. That might actually be better. Tezzeret Ears probably wins the game, but I almost certainly win the game anyway off of Narset and Dak, so I might as well just take the safe play and do this. I really wish I could tell what this card did without waiting for it to level up. Like, how come right click is not giving me information? What does it do? Target what? It's terrible. Anyway, if they try to level up, then I can just go ahead and kill it. Because they don't have enough mana to do anything else, so we'll go ahead and activate. So I've got enough mana to actually do this whole thing. So we'll take a peek with top. Oh, well, I don't actually have to sacrifice here. Yeah, if I don't have to sacrifice, then I won't. So I was going to take a peek with top, then activate, hold down control, and sacrifice it, but that's what I was saying about just a braid being generally pretty nice to have. So that's really, in my mind, a disenchant that just so happened to kill a creature there, which is pretty cool. All right, so the card that I wanted, which was underneath that, was, I think, Narsetable. Boy, I hope so. I'll feel dumb if it wasn't. Yeah, Expedition Map. So Brainstorm with this hand that's really strong is not necessarily like crazy or anything. Like it's not super good for me. I'd really prefer to just do this and then go get Urza and then just win this game. There we go. And then I could, I'm going to definitely attack here. Normally I won't attack if I'm protecting a Planeswalker against possible haste creatures, but no, I'm fine here. I can play, because I can activate Breya's ability to kill a haste creature, and I've got Fierce Guardianship for a non-haste threat. I could play Dack Fayden here and then not attack, but I think that this is fine. There's nothing wrong with me using top to try to improve my draw next turn, and Dack Fayden here, if I plus it on myself and I hit like, I could hit Necropotent's, Necropotent's Jace, right? And then I would keep the Necro, but I'd have to throw away the Fierce Guardianship and the Jace, which would be terrible. So I really don't I don't necessarily want to Dack Fayden myself here, so. Yeah, totally fine. All right, so we'll take a look with the top again. Oh, well, Prismatic Ending, so good. The flexibility in this deck is just, it's just crazy. So I don't need the Delta. I can just take Ending Orb, I guess, and then I don't even need to mess around with, yeah, 1, 2 for that, 1, 2, 3 for that. I mean, I could use Sensei's Divining Top here, but do I even want to? I kind of don't. Yeah. I think this is fine. All right, so we'll go ahead and let Saga do that. So black, red, white. Okay. The only land I'm going to untap is Urza Saga. And this game is over. Opponent agrees, and we move on. So I didn't have to do it that way, I guess, but I mean, that was the right play. So there's no reason to like take weaker plays in order to like try to make your opponent feel like they're in the game when they're not. It's just, I don't think that that's polite, honestly. Just make the game ending play and let them play again, All right. Another Aryan. I got a very slow hand, but it's very keepable, so it gets pretty bad if my opponent has early threats that I really can't address here. So hopefully there's no fetch land into Zyra. Oh, that's exactly what there is. Honestly, like 3-mana book is pretty slow. Jamday Tome book, 3-mana card draw is pretty slow. So if that's what happens here, I'm not as concerned about it. It's 3-mana to play it, 3-mana to use it, and by then, yeah, kind of tempted. I could remand. It's kind of tempting though to just slam the talisman. The opponent's turn next turn very well. I think I will. So the opponent's probably tempted to just draw a card here. They're down a couple cards and they want to get some refill. And the whole reason they play this commander is because they want to draw extra cards. So if my opponent does that, hopefully not with a fetch land, right, for death right, because then they could draw a card and make another play, getting both cards and tempo. But if they play just, yeah, that, and then they just draw a card, then I think I'm in pretty good shape here. Attack with Deathright, I play Jace, I bounce Zyra, they draw one card. Or I play my commander, which puts them in a spot. Now the only thing I don't like about this is so I could play Winter Orb here. Actually, that does change things. Could play Winter Orb. The only thing I don't like about the whole using a fetch land to do something here is that actually I should use this one and get underground. Yeah, the only bad thing here is that I'm charging their death rate a little bit. So if I do this and I play Jace and I bounce this and they draw a card, and then on their turn they can attack it for 1 and replay it, and that's sort of the best case scenario. Or I just play Winter Orb, then untap these 2 lands, and then play like Teferi, and I think I just win from there. So let's just do that. This way I don't have to give them mana to play under the orb with the death rate. I may have to if I need to remand, but at least I have options now. And then if my opponent uses like mana to kill the orb, then they're not using mana to draw a card, which is good. And if they draw a card here, they're semi-insane. And that's what I like to see, because they've just basically they played a card that said Stone Rain, you know, kill 2 of your lands, draw a card, which is a card nobody would ever play. Because it's terrible. And so that's what I mean about that. So remanding this is pretty bad for me. It's just a big old waste of mana. So the nice thing here is 1, 2, 3. Even if they make that a 2/2, like they don't really have good attacks against a Teferi. And a Teferi orb is a pretty solid, as is a Tezzeret orb, which can follow it pretty quickly after that. So alternately, I play Jace, but I don't think that's right at all. Other plan is I play my commander, but I think although I am giving my opponent mana with their death rate here, I think the thing is I play Teferi and untap for a remand, and then later on get access to even more mana, you know, and this just makes more sense, right? So I get a card. Well, that was obviously awesome. So I get a card. I get access to remand here. We'll untap all 4 colors, which is 2 lands. So I get the card, I get access to remand, and then I wasn't even counting on the force of will, but I was just thinking, then on the next turn, if I play the remand, on the next turn, say they play something off death right, I would untap land, I could play a land, which would be 3rd land, and then plus Teferi, and in very short order, I'm back up to plenty of mana. But on the other hand, if they don't play anything I needed to remand, in this case I can force up. But if I didn't need to spend the mana, then what I would do is I'd untap, play a land, and then cast my commander. That is such a cool card. I really like that card. I hope they do that for the... God, I want that for Island so bad. Yep, fine with me. I just get some damage on this, and I play my commander. They stop attacking. That's kind of what I'm hoping. Yeah, this does have flying, so I have to keep that in mind. Oh, interesting. So they have a spell I want to play, and not putting extra damage on Teferi here may cost my opponent. They don't have a spell they want to play, or they just want to play it as an instant. It's either way. I'm gonna draw a card immediately. Not helpful right now, but maybe it will be later. You can get Volcanic with this guy, and then we'll go ahead and play this. So it's going to be red, black, white, blue. And it's cool that this is a forest. I can tap for mana without having to feed him Deathrite Shaman over there, unless I actually need to go get a Volcanic or something like I was thinking. And then normally, you know, I'm feeling the pinch of an orb here, but the whole point was, you know, Teferi is specifically the... That's weird. What is he playing? The abuse that it gives you with Winter Orb, the Winter Orb cheat. Oh, can't be countered. Okay, so we're out. He's out. Out from under that. So now I can just kill Zyra, which I think is probably correct. Otherwise, I mean, I don't know. I could just let my opponent draw a card because it's incredibly slow for them to be doing that and just sit on remand for safety. That's probably better. I don't want to have to force a will if I can help it. And I'm not getting card advantage if I kill Zyra and then force a will when I don't have to force a will. Basically, I'm killing one of their cards and then killing one of my own cards to do it. Whereas I can sit here, remand, like if it's a big play, you know, prime time or something along those lines, and then, you know, what if my opponent, for example, has Vandal Blast, right? So, excuse me. Or Terminate, which will allow me to actually generate a little extra card advantage. I think that's, at this point, okay now. So, probably kill Grol'Thaz Assassin. Leave their commander in play for now. I can deal with that in a moment. Of course, I have the workshop, so Breya's next turn comes down somewhat trivially. Just because I don't know what this does. But I do know that it gets big, and I don't want it to get big. It still won't show me the card. That is incredibly annoying. Wow. I'm imagining that I'm probably going to have to force will. That was a bait spell, if you've ever seen one. But that's okay. If I didn't have force will, then I wouldn't. Oh, yeah, I don't care about that. Okay. That doesn't slow me down at all. All right. So take a couple counters off Teferi. Don't care. I'm using them to draw cards, not to kill things in play, so just not an issue. I don't want to give... I don't want to feed Deathrite Shaman, but I'm gonna need red mana anyway, so gonna have to just go get it. So I might as well get the one that comes into play tapped. All right, let's grab another card. All right, workshop is great. I can get my commander down, but if I change my play just slightly, what I can do is I can get down another strong tempo play without having to, I can disrupt my opponent's tempo, advance my own game plan, and really have to tap. And then what this does is it lets me remand and force if I need to. All right, so we'll do that. And if I do remand, there's a chance that I remand into a blue spell, which would allow me to force and not have to kill my own Tezzeret, which would be great. The next thing I want to do is play Tezzeret and then steal their commander with Shackles. Most likely. I mean, I could Tezzeret into Jitte and kill creatures that way, or I could Tezzeret into Clamp and generate cards. But I don't need to generate cards with these kind of Planeswalkers into play. So really, it's just about tempo now. I don't lose to card advantage at this point. I lose to tempo. So I think that stealing the commander makes the most sense from this position. Artifact or land, it can't be regenerated. We're targeting workshop. So once again, that's pretty fine with me. I mean, I already used the workshop to play a Coalition Relic, so pretty acceptable stuff. So if I remand this, it just buys me time to charge up Teferi to do some other things, and I think that's probably okay. Most importantly, it's just one more turn of them not getting a. So there we go. Not getting to draw an extra card off of it. So playing a little like LD stuff going over there, and that's cool. Yeah, attack that. I could block. I could block, but I think Jace at 2 is the same as Jace at 1 because I'm gonna zero Jace going forward. So I'm just gonna bury my opponent in cards now. All right. So I'll take, I guess, black. In case I draw Necro, I suppose. Although it's unlikely I'll be playing Necro from here. I can also plus Jace here. I've got so many cards. Like once you get to a certain point, tempo really does become more important than cards. It's more cards that you've already got enough of. So I could Spellseeker to kill the death rate if I wanted, or just Spellseeker for Mana Drain to consolidate my position. And if I'm going to Spellseeker for that, I might Vindicate this guy. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Yeah, that actually works out pretty well. Did I haven't gotten a Soul Ring yet, so, or a Crypt. Did I get a Crypt? Okay, so I could do that. So I think I'll actually zero and yeah, see what my options are. All right, so don't need Hallowed Fountain, don't need Marsh Flats. Because I can use this to go get Hallowed Fountain, which I just put back. Get it untapped because I'm pretty confident that it'll be getting used here at some point. So get down the Soul Ring. So we get to go pretty crazy here with plays. I think I'm just going to Vindicate this thing. It's kind of annoying to have it chip away at my Planeswalkers. And then we'll just lock this board down. And this is what I was saying about Spellseeker earlier. Like, how often am I getting anything that isn't an absurd card, right? Now, Teferi's going to untap 2 lands, so I can cast... So I can actually use Trinket here and hold Skydiver to Force of Will with. And then what I'll do is Trinket for Skull Clamp and then just refill my hand again. I could have Trinket for more mana here, but I mean, I'm getting tons of mana, and drawing 4 cards off the Spellseeker and the Thopter once again, the power of Spellseeker versus the other card there. So now I've got Mana Drain ready to go for anything nasty. Force of Will in case they have like a 1-2 punch, Strip Mine, cast a spell. Opponent doesn't know about the Force. I think they probably concede here. That's my guess. They've spent a ton of tempo, like 3 mana and 4 mana and stuff. Yeah, this Unmask here just to feed me 4 mana doesn't seem great, but I'll take it. So my opponent exiled a... Oh, their commander. Yeah, it was clever. So at this point, I don't care. I've got Teferi, and I don't need to use Teferi to draw cards when I have Skullclamp to draw cards. So this is the quandary that I'm putting my opponent in by using card drawing and then alternating how my Planeswalker is like, this is giving me tempo, then it's giving me cards, this is giving me cards, then it's giving me tempo. By being able to do that, it's just impossible for my opponent to come back from, basically. All right. All right, being able to dump a ton of mana into a lovely, lovely Gilded Lotus is good times. Because then I can actually throw the Gilded Lotus mana into Tezzeret and reset my mana sources, which is, I actually need mana on this turn because I have so many cards, right? Opponent, if they were going to make a play, they probably should have made that play before letting me get this far. But I'm not going to protect the Gilded Lotus. I've got tons of mana. It's totally fine. That can go away. This is still going to untap that because as long as one target's legal, it's still going to work. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and take a look at cards now. Ooh, Saga. Don't really need shackles, but what? So I'm going to tuck the flats. It doesn't matter what I tuck here. I'm going to skull clamp, so we'll just go ahead and attack all but Trinket Mage because, once again, don't need to have my guys get hit by a hasted creature. After combat, I'm going to play Skull Clamp, and the damage is irrelevant. Going to clamp the non-flyer. I'll go ahead and just yield to that. If I'm using it, it's because I want it to happen. Saga down. Let's clamp that guy. Excellent. And then, oh, I can take his arena, so that's good for me as well. Do I have enough mana to do it? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I'm 1 mana short. I can't take, because he killed my card, I can't steal my opponent's Phyrexian arena. All right, well, that's fine. I don't need to. I'll just tuck that guy. And then if I... All right, so I'm going to spend 2 mana for the Torque. Oh, okay. So he's going to spend 2 mana for the Torque and then spend 1 mana for the top and then pass. Is that right? No. No. I don't spend any mana on the Torque here. So what I do is pass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2. Yeah, okay. So I spend 2 mana for the Torque and I pass. I don't play the top. I've got 5 mana untapped. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5 mana is to hardcast Force of Will. Opponent probably would, play their commander, but maybe they top deck something that I don't need to worry about too much, a permanent per se. Then I, Thieving Skydiver, I turn it into an artifact with Torque and steal it with Thieving Skydiver. I almost did so with the arena there because I would have Force of Will backup, but actually I realized there were a couple problems with that. One, I didn't have enough mana. I would have needed 2 mana for the Torque, but then I have to tap the Torque to make it an artifact, and then I don't have enough mana to steal the arena. And 2, if I steal the arena in that way, I can't Force a Will because I'm tapped out and I don't have enough. I don't have another blue card for the Skydiver, so that wouldn't work out whatsoever. So made more sense to just sit on Force of Will, hard cast it next turn, steal. So that's why I went with Arena Tuck. Because if I don't tuck the arena there, if I get greedy and I want to steal it in a turn, which makes no sense whatsoever, given that I have like 3 planeswalkers providing me unlimited value plus a skull clamp. But if I had gotten greedy that way, my opponent could have drawn 2 cards, and then I only had the mana for 1 Force of Will, so then I could just potentially have thrown the game. Okay, an excellent start. All right, Kenrith, it is. So this should be a much more difficult battle. So what do I want to do against Kenrith? So I really want to Enlighten Tutor for, uh, you know, Crypt or whatever, but I also kind of want to burn the Imperial Seal. So I think what I do is I do this and I wait. And the reason I'm waiting is that I may want to seal for something like Jace or a solution to a problem. Right? I do have Portable Hole, but still. Huh. Wow. Turn 1 Kenrith. It doesn't do too much. Not until he gets up to 4 mana, so I think I'm okay. Let's grab my Tundra. Let's go grab, I think, a Crypt. So I can Crypt into Torque for free. Play the Portable Hole and the Imperial Seal. If I get Soul Ring, I can only play one or the other, but I want to kill my opponent's Crypt, so. Go ahead and run this guy out. I'll go for the Portable Hole. If my opponent Force of Wills here, then I'll hit them with the Mind Twist most likely. But we'll see. So I actually plan to Imperial Seal for Jace. Oh, interesting. Now that's brutal. But, yep. I still think that, so having received that unfortunate bit of luck there, I'm still going to follow up with exactly what I said, which was him them. All right. Bad news for me. But not horrid. So I do need to Imperial Seal. I do kind of want to get the torque down. What I'm hoping is that I draw red. So if I draw red, I go red mana, tap 2, play the torque, seal for Dak Faden, and then I get to steal their commander. So the opponent's like gaining life or something. I don't know what they're doing. Doesn't matter. They don't have enough mana yet. So Skydiver is huge. Okay. They're going to be able to draw a card here. That is not good. Yeah, I've got to get the torque down. I think pretty much my only hope is to steal that Crypt. So I'm going to be down cards here if my opponent draws a card. I assume they will. Hopefully they won't. I'm risking, like, losing to Wasteland or something. I mean, there's a lot of ways I can lose this game. And then, of course, they could just find some kind of counter spell. But if they don't, and I'm able to steal the Crypt, I'll be way ahead on mana, and then maybe I can... And that land off the top was ugly for me. And then maybe I can get somewhere. What is it? Put target creature card from a graveyard? Yeah, there's nothing. Well, there's the mana I would have liked to have seen, but this is fine. So opponent's going to draw a card, and then I don't know what. Hopefully nothing. The fact that I drew this talisman, if I steal the Crypt, I can use the crypt to play the talisman. If I draw my commander, then I can get my commander down. Okay, so there's a lot going on here, but alternately, like I said, I can talisman and then seal for Dak, and I really like that because stealing Dak Faden here means sorry, getting Dak Faden would mean I can just steal Kenrith and then beat my opponent up with him. Yeah, take more damage. 2 more hits from the commander too would kill me. Like, commander damage is a very real threat with Kenrith. There's a lot of problems here for me at the moment. So I can play Talisman and then go for my commander. Also, a very valid line. Because if it fails, I chump block and then I can replay my commander. I think that's probably right. Yeah. Counterspell, right? Yeah, of course. All right. And depending on what I draw next turn, so I'm gonna have to chump block. Like, uh-oh. Or do I just die? Trample and haste. What does my opponent get here? Does he go for mana or... So if I was sealed there, I would have gone for Dak Faden, and then I could have actually played Dak Faden around a mana leak, but not any other counterspell. And there's no way to know like what counter my opponent has, so... Commandeer. Exiling trash. Huh. Interesting start on my opponent's side of the board. Portable Holdstock. I think this game would be pretty much a no-brainer, but now it's like a done deal. But now it's kind of anybody's game. So the right card for this opponent, incidentally, is Mox Opal. You get Mox Opal, and then that gives you every color. It provides you with a mana source so that you can draw extra cards, and it gives you every color so that if I don't block, you can just spend the green and kill me. It also gives your creature, gives you red so that you can give your creature trample and potentially kill me that way. All of which is pretty good, right? So Nevermore, also pretty good. So I need to chump, and then if my opponent draws green, I die. But if I don't chump and they draw red, I die. So, which one is it, right? So I think I have to chump. So opponent plays Nevermore, shuts off my commander, makes perfect sense. This sets them up for lethal if they draw green. It also means that I could just, well, there's a lot of ways I could just lose here, so, yep. Okay. So now I Imperial Seal, and I go get Dak Faden, and I hope. And then I don't play the land because I'd ultimately, first of all, I want to fake my opponent out a little bit. There's no point in telling him what I have. And then secondly, I would prefer to pitch that to Dak if I'm able to steal Kenrith, but we will see. My opponent finds green, and I'm dead. This is Tightrope. I think my opponent has green here. They just slam it, right? So they didn't find green. Okay. 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 What a game. So now, do I steal? If I steal their guy, actually, I do play the land. So because I can steal Kenrith, and then I need life. Anyway, that's an artifact. Blue, red, and then if I take it, haste and card draw. Yeah, so I want to draw a card with, so this gives me the exact mana that I need to draw a card. All right, so opponent's out of resources. Well, they've got Castle Lochthwain. What is this? Gain 5 life? Yeah, sure. Okay. What a rough game. They don't actually have the extra black to use it, but I don't know what the other 2 brainstorm cards were. Also, they might just have removal here. Oh, kidding me. Okay, well, maybe I'm still in the game then. All right, so Kenrith can't at least come down next turn without more mana. So I'm going to plus myself. Wait, cancel. Okay. So I have 3 islands, so I can go put a card I want on top of my library and then plus into it. But the cards are, I don't really need a mind twist here, and the cards that I want really, I would need a tutor. It would take too long to get the cards into my hand that I want. So I am going to deck Fade myself. But Mystical Sanctuary would let me recur a card, then deck into the card, and then, do something along those lines. But one thing I may consider here is actually playing the Stoneforge Mystic. Because whatever I find is unlikely to cost too much mana. And there's a chance that I actually would prefer to throw away the equipment that I find. So if I do it this way, I can get GT or Clamp. And in this case, I mean, Clamp lets me, trade favorably. GT just lets me kill this thing and then possibly get some life and stuff, which I kind of need. So, all right, let's do it this way. So we can throw away a couple lands. So I can play this and I can take a peek. Okay, so I don't want Mana Confluence. So there's a mana drain there. Now, if I'd have gotten the Clamp, I would put the mana drain on top, I would play the Clamp, I would equip the Clamp, and I would pass, and I'd be perfect. Now, however, definitely not perfect. Because I'm going to have to give my opponent an opportunity to potentially mana drain me here. On the plus side, I have Dak on 2 with a Torque. Maybe I should have just jump blocked with the Mystic here. Boy, I wish I had gotten Clamp. It's almost always correct to get Clamp. Crazy situation here. so good for me if my opponent untaps there. It means that they are unlikely to have any plays. We can dismiss that. Unlikely to have any plays. And if they're unlikely to have any plays, yeah, then we just get to do this, which is beautiful. Yeah, no, 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 turn off auto yields. Oh, God, I almost flubbed it and kill this guy. Almost flubbed it. Okay, so now I've got an active DAC ready to go. We know that there's a Teferi hiding on top. Now that one I will yield to, and at least until my life gets low enough that it could kill me, in which case I've got to be more careful. Okay. So we know there's a Teferi on top, so Teferi will clear out Nevermore. All right, 2, 3. Do I want to steal anything? I actually want a plus, so I'm going to lose Sensei's Divining Top and an unknown. I better do it now. Okay, perfect. Then since I'm not using the torque, I can do my play this way. And then that means I've got 3 blue in case my opponent has a strip mine. We'll go ahead and tuck the Nevermore. And then pass for the turn. But now I'm sitting on a pretty good board. Opponent can finally play his commander. But if my opponent does play the commander, I just steal with Dak Faden. So they actually have to get red mana. They have to be able to play the commander and give it haste. Otherwise, I just steal it. And they have to do it now, though, because next turn I can play Breya. And then I've got Breya Jite. So I suppose, I suppose, much as I bemoaned the Jite, it all worked out here. But I don't know. 2 more cards in my hand and less life. The Venser still would have died if I made the trade, so I would have had 2 more cards in my hand. I wouldn't have a Jite with a counter on it, but probably I would be in a better spot. Still, this will have to do. Okay, opponent's got 2 cards in hand. One of them is their commander. So that's not a significant... So that means that they only could potentially counterspell once here. So I'm going to go ahead and plus up to Fairy. Good. Vindicate. Real nice. I can kill Castle Lock Thwain, possibly, and just steal their Mana Vault. But that just delays. I don't know. I want to get Breya down, but the thing about it is I want to be cautious in how I do it. So, and I don't actually have enough mana here, so I don't have another blue. So I think I'm actually going to plus myself again. All right, Vindicate and Brainstorm can go away. I've already got Dak Faden running, so there's some extra blue. And that's pretty much the main thing that I need. Now I can clear my attack step out. And then go for a Breya cast, and then pay that way. And then I've got Counterspell up plus 1 mana. Not that that extra 1 mana means anything. All right, so opponent counterspells Breya. That's okay. I can replay it next turn. Oh yeah, I was also forgetting about the Teferi here, but that actually frees me to Mystical Tutor, so I'm still pretty happy with that. I was thinking that I could tutor for Vandal Blast, but honestly, you can keep that Mana Crypt. I don't think I need it here. I've been using yours quite well. What I can do is get Sfien's Reclamation, possibly. Sfien's Reclamation. It's not that good. I'll probably just Mystical for something like Fact or Fiction. So again, my opponent's got their commander, and then they have 1 unknown. I could have pushed my commander there, but I think this is okay. Because if their one unknown is red mana, they're not going to be able to counter back when I counter their commander. If their one unknown is like a counter spell, then they play their commander and they counter my counter and their commander sticks, but it doesn't swing in with haste, and then I just tutor and win anyway. So so I will be, of course, countering, yeah, Kenrith here. Opponent now knows that I felt it was more important to hold my mana drain than it was to push my Breya for a lot of reasons, but it's going to feed my Breya here quite nicely. Okay. Normally, Mystical Tutor here, not necessarily the best, because it's less cards to convert with Dak Vaden, but with Teferi as well. So there's a little risk. If I tutor here and my opponent has exactly the black creature that punishes me, then I'm in big trouble for making that play. So I think actually what I'm gonna do is go for Breya and see if they have a counter spell. I don't want to. I don't want to cast Mystical Tutor and have my opponent get a free search. And there's no reason to. There's no reason to do it when I can tutor on my turn, and I mean, sure, it saves me a mana, but I can tutor on my turn, and I can Dak or Teferi the card into my hand. So if they do have something here, for the most part, I'm okay. Now, if I play this card and my opponent flashes that creature out in order to stop me from getting some planes, I can live with that. Opposition Agent's the card I'm trying to think of. Okay. I'll grab Triome and Scrub, actually. I don't necessarily want to be taking damage here, and Scrub allows me to not take damage and still leave the more flexible Mox up. So what could they have? It's not Hull Breacher. It could be Opposition Agent, but if it is, they're very disciplined. I'll plus Teferi before I do anything else. Sure would like a counter. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay. I think the safest play here is definitely to get Breya down. They may have a counter here, but then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana, plus a Dak Faden. Alright, cool. Okay, so from there, I think I can Urza. Let me make sure. There's no Winter Orb, right? Alright, cool. Alright, so I'm actually going to just gain the life, because I'm going to have to take some risks here. Let's orb my opponent down. Go ahead and Dak myself. Throw a couple cards I don't care too much about. And then I've got Teferi running, so the orb is very minimal impact to me, and pretty gnarly for my opponent. So now all I have to do is get the either get the Breya down or get the I either have to get Breya down or I have to disenchant my own crypt. So focus on that. Just flip like a boss. That's the trick. All right, so Breya costs 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Have I already used Workshop? Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. See, I've got it. Let's grab a card. Very good to see. Grab some more. I don't need Preordain, and I don't think I'm going to need Vandal Blast with deck fade in play. So 2, 3. So I'm going to actually have enough mana to sack Breya. Thanks to deck fade in here. And I can even play around the white Force Spike. And opponent concedes as they know that at this point I have total control of the game, and the only chance that they had, which was to deal either that last point of commander damage or those 5 points of actual damage, is gone. So if I had lost a flip and gone down to 2, then I would untap 2 lands here, and then during my end step, I would most likely immediately just sack Crypt and the Talisman and just grab some life and not worry too terribly about whether or not I could counter my opponent's next play, because even if they went like land, disenchant your thing, at that point I would have been down 3, right? In this hypothetical, I'd be at 2 life, but then I would have jumped up to 7. Opponent can't bolt me and kill me. And if they disenchant this, then so be it. All they have to do at that point is, with a single card in their hand, beat this hand of cards plus Tezzeret, Teferi, Dak Faden, an active Jite, an active Torque, and Breya. It's an impossible task. So I would have won the game either way. So the smart play is just to immediately gain the life and then not lose to a card like Sudden Shock or Stifle, right? Like what if I went to gain the 5 life and my opponent was like Stifle, and then I went, oh no, untap, and then I've got to deal with another coin flip, and I don't know. There's maybe that wouldn't have killed me, but specifically because my opponent had the white land untapped. Had they had a blue land untapped and one card in hand, then I could see a scenario where I try to gain the life and they stifle it and then untap and draw like lightning bolt, get the perfect runner type thing. So there's just no reason whatsoever to mess around with that. Far more important, when my opponent has just the white mana untapped, to just immediately gain the life, get rid of the thing that's killing me, and then mathematically I've got that game under wraps. Like there's no way I'm losing the game with the incredible amount of advantages that I had at that point in the game. So I thought that was a pretty awesome one. Hopefully you enjoyed. That's a real time. So a lot of times what's been happening lately is I've been trying to make video content for y'all that's interesting, and I've been trying to do it with interesting games, and I've had multiple games that have been really good, and I would chalk that one up to say 80% game. Like that was a really good game, but it wasn't sort of epic, but it was definitely really good. Well, I've been trying to get really good and up, so anything better than anything at that level or above, and I have not been able to get the replays to work. So I was like, there was a game in here. There was a game in here and I can't find it, and I absolutely had just the most utterly insane game where my opponent leads off with like the most broken start imaginable, and I can't like where that doesn't actually kill you, right? So they let off with like going first. They played like 6 or 7 mana and a smokestack, and then got a bitter blossom in play. So they were able to sacrifice the token to the smokestack, and I'm going second, and I have exactly like lands in my hand and no like fast mana start on my turn to keep up with any of that. And I managed to win that game. Um, And it was one of the most amazing games I played in forever, and the replay bugged out. So that's the other reason for me to try to do this in real time. This is frustrating because it's insanely good if I just had a blue, but I don't think I can afford to risk it against a commander that can be that fast and aggressive. So I could dump. So I could dump Wasteland here. It's usually acceptable against a two-color deck. The other option is dump like Cavernous Souls or City of Brass. I could probably dump City of Brass actually and be okay. But if my opponent kills any of my colored mana, it's not good for me. But at least Wasteland gives me a little bit of interactivity. I want to keep Cavernous Souls against a blue deck that's going to try to... Yeah, so let's see what they do with their... Well, actually, they put them back in any order, so not much going on there for me. So I don't know. I'm going to play this and see what happens. There's a very small chance that my opponent plays like land nothing here, and if they do, I might wasteland them. The other possibility is that they're running Halimar Depths so that they can play like Azorius Chancery and pick it up, and if they were to do that, then the wasteland blows them out. It's flying, detain target permanent. Okay. But in the meantime, oh boy, I wish I had played the Delta into a better land there. In the meantime, so yeah, I could waste them here. Dang, not playing the Delta there. That was a big punish for me. I think I actually get scrub. So this is not playing out exactly the way I wanted to, but I mean, ultimately their commander just, it does damage and that sucks, but it's not like, I mean, it can beat me, but it takes a little bit of time before it wins. So I'm probably okay here. I kind of want to hit him with the waste, play the Skydiver, and then Enlightened Tutor. And just use the Skydiver as I'll block your Geist, like make them have an answer to it. I think that's right. This game's a bit of a race, so and then what this lets me do is throw down Breya next turn if I want to, via Mox Diamond. Ethereal Armor. Okay, so it's like a Voltron thing. So I do want to throw Breya down next turn. Fortunately, that's not commander damage. At least I think playing Breya next turn makes a lot of sense. Is there anything I'm not considering? Yeah, I can portable hold the ethereal armor, but it's not really a great, like, a great spot for me. I could play a land and play Umezoa's Jite, attack with the Skydiver, get a couple counters. That would let me kill their guild master, and then follow it up with Breya. So it's a little bit slower, but it does get something off the board and makes blocking a little more painful for them. Um, I'm somewhat nervous on what's going to happen if I don't get Breya down next turn. But I think this is probably correct. The thing about it too is that a big creature with Umezawa's Jite can just block, right? I probably should have played Cavern of Souls here, because if my opponent goes like land Armageddon, then all I've got is a Cavern of Souls instead of something a little more decent. I'm gonna not kill the Guildmaster there. I don't remember what Detain does. What is that? Okay. Yeah, so they're going all full Voltron. So they're gonna hit me pretty hard. I don't remember what Detain does, but I don't think I wanna deal with it, so. All right. It's a pretty dumb strategy. Well, not dumb, but like, it's pretty mindless. I'm sure people would say that my strategy is pretty dumb. So I can nuke the Ethereal Armor if I want to, and then strip mine the Colonnade and attack, and then follow it up with Breya, and I think that might be correct. I'm just getting further and further behind, but like I said, the Jite can allow my creature to potentially block and kill the thing that it's blocking, so I think this is right. So a funky combo, but I mean, if this is all they're doing, then I think it's okay for me. If I can't block, of course, I've got a problem, but all right, so I can play the Cavern, or just play Delta, take more damage. I'm not sure damage matters. Card advantage might matter. If I draw deck Faden, or Jace. Damage could be relevant. The other thing is they could have a Force of Will here, so I'm just gonna, I don't want to take a chance. All right, so attack with this, get more counters on Jite, and then probably we're good to go here. Like, if they do send in with just a 5/5 Geist, then it just dies, and I think the game is over at that point. So that's not really the play for my opponent here. Is it? Oh no, it gets flying. That's right. Right. So I have to use the Jite. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Oh, right. But then they can't pick up the Enlightenment, right? Right. Okay, cool. So I can take the 5 and 4. I can take 9. One more hit from the commander if I do that means I'm dead. So I actually don't like that. I think I jump here. And then I swing in, get another bunch of GT counters and slide the GT over. Hopefully, so I want to move it to. Do I want to move it to Breya? No, that doesn't make any sense. It's got to be on the untapped flyer. Okay, I could also draw like a Braid or something and kill the enchantment there. It's not super good. Oh, I can. Oh, okay. Well, we can enchant Breya. How about that? Does it work? Yeah, it does work. Excellent. I thought that worked, but cool. And then I need more blue. Okay. And then so now I've got a 5/5 flyer. And then so 8 and 5 is so 8 and 5. So I can possibly just win with commander damage. 12, 5. 8 counters, 16, 21. So if I get 8 counters, Breya, it's 21 damage. So I think what we do is we move the Jitte to the Thopter. So I have 2 flying blockers at this point. I could have done it using Grim Monolith mana, but I would have had to use the mana to a little bit earlier in the turn in order to keep 2 mana up for Breya's activated ability, and that just didn't. All right, well, you can use Homeward Path. I haven't taken any of your creatures. You can go Sleep Prison. That is all fine. Yep, you do all those lovely things over there because those things do not win this game for you. All right, so now, I want to get black in case I draw Necro. Given that I've got a Jitte over there. Gonna waste my opponent's path. So now I can play the Grim, and then I can pay 2 to attack, and I can still I can hard cast Force of Will. Is this going to be like a concede here, or what is this? Okay, I don't need torque. Well, that's not entirely true. So I can torque like a Skydiver and sack it to Breya if I want. But that's not going to work with if I'm going to attack. So let's do this. All right, so my opponent may not realize that I have lethal here. And I can deal with this by blocking with both creatures, so I don't even need to waste mana here. I want to keep my Force of Will available. And as a matter of fact, if my opponent attacks, then they're definitely screwed because they won't have a blocker for my lethal attack next turn. So I kind of want to entice them to attack by not moving the Jitte over. What's interesting too is I can actually, it's funny, this is no longer an artifact, but it just doesn't matter, does it? Interesting deck going on over there. Enters the battlefield, draw a card, but that doesn't really change anything. Sure. I mean, if I don't have to force a will, I won't. I can start pressuring my opponent, force him to chump block, and then from there, I don't see how they win. It's perfectly fine. Also, I can Prismatic Ending again, or Enlightened Tutor again, via Crucible and Polluted Delta into Regrowth Land. So, yep, that's what we wanted. All right, blockers, we're going to chump. So make sure it doesn't have trample or anything. I don't think so. And then I can just block there because it flies. Cool, cool. And that was lethal, but not for me. Somebody, quick, somebody call an ambulance. But not for me. At least I'm pretty sure. I mean, obviously there are free counter spells in the format, and I can hard cast Force of Will. My opponent makes a play. They can have a free counter spell, and you know, that's that. But barring any of that, well, there's the Necro. I'm gonna get the Delta out though. Prior to combat, I'm gonna go ahead and move the and I've got well, not exactly, but I've got enough. So they might have like the perfect like condemn and spell pierce, but they might also just be dead. Awesome. I feel like that was a good navigation there. Certainly with the Necro draw, if I guess I could have just played Necro there and then done something with it, but nah. I'll see if I can get a game quickly. Otherwise, I probably am going to wrap it up. I don't know how long this video is. Surely it's been quite some time. This is kind of how Magic goes for me, though. A lot of relatively slow games and a lot of long waits, unfortunately, peppered with just rapid, like easy kills, right? And then you get these really hard games where either I lose or my opponent loses, but you know those are the CEDH ones, and they're usually, interestingly, only a few turns, but typically slow with a lot of play and counterplay. For the most part, they're usually pretty interesting, and sometimes they can be really long games, and those are super interesting as well. Doesn't look like I'm getting anything, so I'll wrap it up. Yeah. So hopefully you enjoyed a little picture of what live play looks like for me on a typical night. This is fairly typical. And hopefully you enjoyed watching the Breya deck in action. I feel like it's such an interesting deck, fun to play because it is just constantly a puzzle of decision making, and trying to look at a board and determine what is my goal here, and what's my opponent's goal, and then how do I prevent them. Is it more important to stop them, or is it more important to push my agenda? Because the agenda isn't to stop them. Stopping them is just how you buy time. But sometimes you have to, as you saw in these games, you have to let your opponent do bad things so that you can do worse things. That is occasionally what you have to do, and finding that finding those moments and figuring out when that's the case, it is definitely I don't know, it's part of the allure of playing this deck for me because and I one of the reasons I somewhat despise like the mono blue 100 counter spells for everything deck, because in that deck basically the goal is you essentially don't let your opponent do anything, to the maximum extent possible. And I don't find that to be particularly interesting because it's about as brain dead as, I don't know, play my commander and stack enchantments on it until I kill you, um, which I find to be, again, I say brain dead because I think of it that way, but I don't want to insult anybody's gameplay. I just find it to be very distasteful because, here you've got, excuse me, here you've got a game that has some of the most interesting and complex interactions probably of any game ever in history. Um, you can find games with more moves, I guess, theoretically, but for the most part, um, I think as far as enduring games and evolving games and intriguing games, I think this is probably number one. And then to turn it into a very straightforward linear strategy for me isn't enjoyable, but those strategies are important because you need to be pressed hard, in order to find out the limits of what, you know, what your deck can actually do, right? What the control deck can do, what you're trying to build. The Weissman style control deck that has all of the tools to win all of the games, requiring you to use all of your skill, and then you need a little bit of luck there too. Can't go too bad against you; those games aren't winnable. But never chalk up to luck what could be. I should have just mulliganed, right? So anyway, that's kind of a lot to throw into an ending statement. But hopefully, like I said, hopefully you enjoyed yourself. Thank you very much. I want to say to everyone who stuck around or who jumped into the video and decided to watch it to the end. So if you're hearing this, as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.